Hey, broken salespeople, welcome to the workshop. My name is Red Staffstrom, and we are here to help you fix your broken sales skills. So just like last week, we are doing another interview where I'm bringing in somebody who has a ton of sales experience, who has been able to grow a career in a very difficult field. I don't know all the details yet, but she's in a little bit of what she's calling a midlife crisis. Um, I really want to dive into it, figure out what's going on with her, and figure out if and how I can help her out. So let's start with Laura. So tell us a little about yourself and what you're going through.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Red. It's really nice to meet you. I've really enjoyed your podcast, and I do like your burrito episode.
Yes.
That was probably one of my favorites. I also like the one where you said "Why me," and that just really hit home because a lot of your experience and a lot of the emotions you went through as a sales rep and the rock bottom you hit is similar to where I've hit. For I'm 40 years old, and off and on for a couple of years now, I've been questioning. I'm like, is this the right field for me? Is this the right field? What is my transition? And eventually, I'd like to look at other options, but right now, I just need to be in sales. That's just my situation. So I need help with motivation and getting that spark again. And I just think you know, being in this industry for about 13 years, that you kind of go around the track, the scenery gets kind of stale. And what do you do to stay motivated?
Okay. So we spoke really quickly, like we didn't go too much, but when I hear motivation, I usually relate it to three things: the autonomy, mastery, purpose. Usually it's either that you're not being able to run the job the way you want to, it's a matter of you not feeling like you're executing the way you should, or that you don't feel like you're actually helping people. When I hear motivation, I usually hear it's one of those three things. Does one of those hit a little harder than the others?
Yeah, definitely the mastery, right? So I'm always looking at my performance. And I would say in the past year, I've really improved my performance. I actually hired a coach to help me learn techniques of stress management and other things that have really improved me in a lot of ways. And then helping people, right? So my sales cycle is very long. You put in a lot of work until you see the results of the sale. So I struggle, I think, with the sales cycle being so long.
Okay, so you don't have that constant positive stimulus that really puts you together. It doesn't feel like you have the wins, even though you may, because it's so incremental that you don't feel like you're getting the small wins you're supposed to.
Yeah, I mean it's really like eating an elephant, right? You have to start small. You can't, you know, eat the elephant quickly, as you would say with that Asian proverb, or Rome wasn't built in a day. So and then it's how do you measure? So I'm taking company solutions and I'm reaching out to the customer. I mean, essentially that's what I'm doing. So how do you turn that into a metric that you can justify to your leadership?
And that immeasurability, that's literally one of Patrick Lencioni's three like ideal like signs of a miserable job. Immeasurability is one of the very first ones. So what metrics are
Right.
you really using?
So the metrics I'm using is how often I can reach the customer, and I've fallen off the track. I'll just be honest there. I've fallen a little off the track there. I'm also This year is the first year I've done this. I've looked at establishing goals. So I established kind of like an 8 month goal, and then 12 months, and then 18 months. And I'm already falling behind what I would think. I'm already falling behind on the 8 month goal. I'm not going to reach the sale metric I set for myself.
Okay.
So actually, my company did assign me a sales goal. It's much lower than what I assigned to myself. So in a sense, that's job security, but it's also like how do you stretch? And I
But
think
it doesn't matter what your company makes you feel like it's a good job, it's what you feel like it's a good job.
mhm.
Because no matter where the company puts that mile marker, it doesn't really matter. It's all about your own motivation.
It's so true. And so when you're just reaching out to the customer trying to get meetings, I mean, that's how people measure. But then how do you know if that's the right metric? Anybody can pull a number out of the sky and then say that's the metric you should be following.
Okay. So I'm assuming your 8-month goals I don't know if you've ever read the 4 disciplines of execution, lead versus lag measures. So sales are always a lag measure. They're always come at the end of doing all the good work. Meetings may be the right lead measure, but it may not be. I've had a lot of meetings that have kind of gone nowhere, especially in some roles where, yeah, I met with the client and we talked, but we didn't really accomplish anything one way or the other. Like it just never, like we were just chatting for a while and then, oh, well, let me get back to you. So the lead measure might be the thing that's really sapping your motivation. We might need something a little more incremental than full-blown meetings. So
I would agree with that because,
yeah, well, you go for it. You would agree with that because
right, because I can just go get any meeting with any, customer, potential client, and I could tell my management, hey, I met with a client, and they would be fine with it. There wouldn't be that discussion on, well, what was discussed? Did you talk about the opportunity we're interested in? Did the customer give you some hints? I mean, so I really have to hold myself to my own discipline, and I struggle with that sometimes. I think anybody does naturally. I've improved a lot for sure, but it's still a struggle at times.
so I think the big thing is we have to tweak what your lead measure is. Meetings, there's that joke in corporate culture. It's like, oh, I just attended my 500th meeting that could have been an email. That, I think, just purely going by meetings may not be the right lead measure. Phone calls definitely isn't it either. Like number of phone calls isn't the right thing for you when you have such a long lead cycle or like a long turnaround cycle.
That is true. I do need to execute a certain number to get to a certain number of meetings, but I would certainly agree because I could talk to the customer 2 times and then bid on an opportunity and then we win it. I mean, it's so subjective. You almost don't know. So it's like, what are the breadcrumbs that I can use for myself to know that I'm going in the right way?
So when I hear it's a long sales cycle like that, I usually assume you're pretty much selling to C-suite people. Like you usually need to get CEOs, CFOs, COOs, people like that involved. And your big headache is going to be how many meetings do you have with middle management that don't really go anywhere?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, the customers they triangulate, right? So you have the sponsor, and then you have the procurement staff that actually do influence the way the procurement is shaped, and then you have the business manager that needs to implement it. So you almost have
So
three
you need to get the whole
stakeholders.
team involved then.
It is.
So
Yeah,
it's not
you see how
something that can,
complicated.
okay. So it's not something where you can just get the CEO because the CEO doesn't see it on a day-to-day basis. Okay,
No.
so you need to get basically full company buy-in, one person at a time, and appealing to all those different characters and different places in the organization. Okay, so and all of these different personalities and appeal to each and every one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So in general, and I know we don't want to go too much into detail, but what if you had to name 3 positions that always have to be in sync in order to implement whatever products you're selling, what would those be? Like CEO, factory manager, like what are the 3 positions you usually need in sync?
Yes, yeah. So I'll I'll try and just still make it simple because each situation can get unique, right? So
Mhm.
I'll just say the CEO, the factory manager, and then the person that puts the RTEP out, right? Because everybody can put their fingers on it and do a little bit of magic with it. So those three people are the ones that I need to appeal to. And it's not necessarily getting them to like me. What's more important is they like the company. I represent the company, but they also need to like what we have to offer and sell.
Okay. How well do you work with how alone are you as a team? Let me kind of back up and ask that a different way. Do you go on meetings with anyone in particular often? Like somebody from your team, whether it's say an engineer, somebody in delivery, somebody in customer service? Like how often is it you alone representing your company?
That's a great question because I can work for a small company.
Mhm.
Usually it's just me because, the resources are more constrained. And so with the larger company, I've been in a large business environment for some time now. Usually I'll bring the solutions person or the delivery person. It really depends on the situation. And then if it's like the CEO type, sometimes there might be four of us and they bring like four of their executives, advisors, and solutions people themselves.
Okay. Because the more you can sell as a team, I think the more effective you're going to be. Because the CEO personality versus the factory manager personality versus the RCAP valve personality, those are going to be drastically different sales pitches for each one of them.
You've
And I know
hit it
for
on the
me,
head there.
yeah, I know for me, I tend to be a higher D personality. I bring things that way and I run like I don't relate well to the CFO position very well. I don't work well with the money person because I can't answer every single step, like every single question. I can't help the engineer because I don't have that C personality that's detail oriented. When I do sales calls like that, I need to bring somebody with me in order to answer the detailed questions that I simply can't. So maybe the metric that you go for rather than meeting, like individual meetings, you go to group meetings. They're probably going to be spaced a little bit further apart. But when you can get those meetings, they're probably a lot more productive than just the solo you sat down with them. Because you're able to speak to all those different personalities. Like the burrito episode that you listened to, your job as a salesperson is to speak to the emotions. You're there to uncover the problem and speak to it and tell to them on how big the problem really is. If that's your strength, you need somebody in your back pocket who is hyper logical, who could answer all those and hold the burrito back together.
Well, that was what was so funny about your burrito episode. You started giving the husband and the wife analogy, and I just thought this is my quintessential sales job. I'm always dealing with husband and wives, and
Mhm.
then they have a kid, or someone's got a really bratty stepchild. So you're
And
dealing.
it's tough to mirror personalities when it's you one on four. So you kind of have to have, and I think of the old 80s buddy cop movies. You need your go-to person alongside of you who, if you're a high I personality, which I know most salespeople are, you need the high C, the opposite end of the spectrum, to appeal to the people you can't. So the same like Lethal Weapon buddy cop movie, you need Griggs and Murtaugh together because they may not like you as much, but they'll like the other person who's a hyper detailed. But
I like this metric with the group meetings. I think that can be very on point. Yeah, I do
so
agree with that.
and now the tricky thing with the motivation is these are going to feel more productive and bringing people on, but they're going to be further and farther apart because it's going to be a lot more. You have to look at each step of a process as an individual sale. Like just scheduling a solo meeting is one step. Scheduling, like leveraging that solo meeting for a group meeting is step 2. Leveraging that group meeting to a full like purchase is step 3. But you have to see each as a win and not just wait until the dollars come in. Focus on the lead measures as opposed to the lag measures, but break it down into those steps and look at each of them as an equal win. I know it sucks because you don't get paid until the last step, but
True.
I know it's a lot more difficult that way. But when I had my breakdown back in 2015, one of the biggest problems I was having was I was not having enough wins early on. And so you have a bad day and you spiral a little, and another bad day and you spiral a little, and then you have one good one, but then 2 more bad ones. And so each one, it's just that step back, and then you're just playing from you're playing from behind, you're below par golf the whole time. And then it's tough not to realize, hey, I suck at this. But by understanding the little wins along the process, that you just have to change the big 8-month goal into how many sales and start breaking down the wins a little bit smaller incrementally.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is I actually drew like a grid. So it's kind of like the screen here, and then you have the line across, and then I did the lines, and I mapped out each month, but I really struggled with what am I putting in there? And then I figured it's really just a formula. I'm always going to put the same activity in there, right? I'm going to make the calls, build the pipeline, da 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 da. And I wanted to put in unique stuff for each month. And then I was like, this is just mathematics, and I need to be doing the same thing each month. It's just
The problem with a goal like an 8-month goal is I work in like real estate sales right now. I coach people in real estate. If we got somebody a listing today and and then tomorrow they find a buyer, it still takes them 60 days for them to get a check. So you have to give yourself the leeway at the beginning to actually let the tires grip. And that's when things are the most frustrated, is when you're really starting to get that flywheel moving. You're not going to see it. And that's why so many businesses fail in their first year, is because they're doing all the right things, but they just haven't started to see the return yet. We just have to start tweaking the wins so that they're more focused towards building the pipeline as opposed to building the overall sale. Like the overall sale can't be the only time you celebrate.
yeah, I agree with that. So it sounds like focus on the small wins to really motivate me to move ahead, and maybe I could find some other small goals to focus on that are not so sales metric focused.
Yes. Let me ask too, do you have any other side jobs that you work?
I coach one client in
Okay.
sales, actually.
Well, here's one of the things that I've learned. Sales becomes so much easier when you don't care about money. And when your lead cycle is very long, um, most of the problems that happen in sales happen from a scarcity mindset. And when you're paranoid about when your next check is coming from, the only thing you see, like you just become hyper focused on that same thing, on money, on money, on money, on money. And that's where a lot of bad decisions come in. The same person who came up with the autonomy, mastery, purpose, he also pointed out, it was Daniel Pink, Drive, if you've ever read the book or seen it before, or his TED Talk. Money has an inverse effect on positive thinking, and not just positive thinking in terms of mental well-being, but ability to think creatively. There was a study back in the 70s, and it was called it was the candle test, is what they basically called it. And participants were given a box of tacks, a candle, and some matches, and they were put in a small room with a desk and a wall, like a desk against a wall. And they were told, what we want you to do is to set up the candle so that it doesn't drip, so that it's not sitting on the desk and not dripping on the desk. So what they were trying to do was they tried to tack the candle to the wall like a taper candle. They would try to melt the side of the candle, stick it to the wall. That didn't work. And the solution was they had to stop seeing the box of tacks as a box of tacks. They had to see it as tacks and a box. They had to see them as two separate things that were just combined, and they had to separate those. So in order to solve the puzzle, they would tack the box to a wall and put the candle in the box. So I bring this up for a reason. They ran this test, so it's just a simple cognitive test. Most people got it in a few minutes. It took them a little while, but eventually they got it. The people who they motivated with money, they said, okay, the fastest time is going to get $25, performed worse than the people who were motivated, but just by establishing the time. See, money works great as a motivator when it's something simple, when you're working on an assembly line and you have to produce 18 widgets a day. Sales is a very complex mechanism. It's very difficult to work through. So it requires a lot of creative solutions. By having that money scarcity, it narrows your focus where all you care about is eating and not realizing, hey, sometimes the solution is just ask for somebody next to you to give you a sandwich. You know, all you're doing is like, okay, so how could I get everything? How could I get that sandwich? Ask. Sometimes it's just that simple. But money as a motivator does not create better results. And I know how weird that is coming from somebody who teaches sales.
Well, the nice thing about, I don't know if this is a double-edged sword or not, but I have a pretty chunky base, right? And so I have not seen commission checks very often.
So it's almost not even commission checks. They're almost bonuses once in a while that it feels like probably.
Yeah, I would just say they're bonuses now. And companies that promise you the moon and the stars, it never happens.
No.
It's almost safer to take the higher check.
Yeah.
But I like what you're saying because it's true. When I'm coaching my client, I'm like having the time of my life. Okay. But when I'm at the job, it's a struggle at times. I really struggle, but if I can get with certain people and get creative, then it really motivates me. So the ideation part is my favorite part. It's like, okay, what does the client want? How do we map our solution to the client? Is my favorite part, honestly.
Okay, so you like the actual problem solving. You've got the purpose motivation there, is what I'm hearing. You like actually building, like you like figuring out what the real problem is, the root cause, and coming up with the solution. Okay. Yep. How often do you have, like, and again, I want to kind of take this away because not all meetings are good meetings. And we've kind of discussed this, but how many salespeople do you work with?
Well, I'm very autonomous on my own with my customer. So I don't have to collaborate with sales. I collaborate more with, I collaborate more with the solution side. And then some of the people are delivery. And then sometimes people have kind of spent time in delivery and in sales. So it really depends.
Well, but how many other salespeople, how many other people in your role are there at your company?
Probably 15, at least I would say in our little umbrella.
Okay. Start bringing them together as often as possible, even if it's just a core group of 4 or 5 of you that you align in terms of what you like to do. What you're going to want to do is start coming up with stories and because stories are what sells. But you don't know, because you don't work very closely with them, you don't know the stories that are getting them to talk to clients. The idea of there may have been a very simple solution that another salesperson never told you about. That would be exactly, and you could hit that right on the spot in that meeting. Like when they mention a problem and they start trying to, well, what if we do this? And then that's that that eureka moment. But the more stories you have in backup, the better you wind up doing in sales. So even if it's just lunch together once a week kind of thing, or just, hey, let's sit down and grab coffee together, talk about what's going on during the week. But being able to have that mastermind of people in the same position, find the positive people, because if you've got a group of 15, you probably have 5 very negative salespeople in there too. But that's going to do 2 things for you. One, it's going to give you more stories to go and tell your customers in terms of success stories, because now you're not only leveraging your own, you're leveraging all of theirs. And 2, it's going to give you more opportunities to do what you really love. It's going to give you more opportunities to actually create the solutions and be like, so this client had this problem. Why didn't you just do this? But you need to have that camaraderie with the other salespeople too. Because they're, and the same thing, you probably have salespeople with all different personalities. Go on a sales call with somebody with the opposite personality that you have. You both have the same objectives, but they're better at talking to the factory work, like the factory manager, than you are. And you're better at the C-suite than they are. Mm. Now you could partner up, and depending on who's in the territory, rock, paper, scissors, however you need to break it apart, but you may be more successful with 2 people than 1 person.
I like that idea. I'll have to noodle that one. I think we're kind of siloed in this weird way where people protect their pipelines, because competition is really pretty freaking fierce.
Well,
so
how do you guys break up your like, do you do it by territory, or is it just free for all? Whoever gets them gets them?
It's by customer. So I own my customer, people own their customers. But the thing is they could always talk to somebody in my industry and reveal a trademark secrets. So
okay,
I'd have to approach that in a creative way.
Yeah. So it's like you have the medical field, they work in the industrial field, like something like that. So you have slightly different ways that way, but there might be some overlap too, where you have a company like Dow that does everything. Okay.
We're kind of like that. Yep.
Okay. So if you talk to something that overlaps with somebody else's, you could have a bit of a pissing contest. No, they should have been mine. No, they could. Okay. I think no matter what, to mastermind together is going to be a good thing for all of you guys. Whether you go on the calls together might be different. Like at that point, you still may want to be a little protective. But anytime you're protective, that's a scarcity mindset, not an abundance mindset.
Trust me, I'm with you. I think a lot of people in sales operate from a scarcity mindset. I'm kind of like the hippie in any group. At least I'm a closet hippie.
Well, and you're not going to get all 15 people together. You only need 3 people to have that mastermind, that close-knit group. Who the same people who are in the trenches with you every day, they're just slightly different trenches. Once it starts working for the 3 of you, you'll pick up a 4th, pick up a 5th, pick up a 6th. Then before you know it, it'll hit critical mass and it'll be company policy. And then that tribalism goes. And then the silos are gone. Same thing. It's 8, 12, 18-month goals. They're not going to be fun. It's going to take a long time, but your goal, at least starting off, your small, like the small wins, a group of 3 of you, 3 hippies together that could work together and help each other out. Hey, I just want to bounce some stories off you. I want to hear some of your stories. Let's see how we could help each other.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you guys start doing better in completely autonomously, like completely on your own, it's easier to pull people in. And that's going to
I
be,
do like that.
and now it's just like a workout buddy. That motivation that's lacking, it's a lot harder not to be motivated when you have somebody that you're letting down. Same level of accountability. That's really, and I'm talking in very perfect terms. This is not going to be perfect. I'm giving you the very sunny rainbow and unicorn picture of it. It's probably going to be like pulling teeth getting the first couple of people together. But
right there with you.
But it's that same flywheel analogy. Is it's going to suck until you get that little bit of movement and then it starts moving itself. And but that will give you some short-term wins while you're waiting for the longer-term wins that actually put money in your pocket. So it's kind of like a side project, but a side project in your own company. You're still selling, it's just you're selling something different. You're selling not the product, you're not selling the solution, you're selling mutual advantage.
It's true.
Yeah. And I can tell already by the look on your face how difficult this is. You could already tell, like, oh no, like you're literally taking a tally of like the lunchroom tally of who would listen and who wouldn't.
It is.
Yeah. Realistically speaking, out of say how many people do you think would be able to get on board with something like this?
You know, so my company is very large,
Okay.
and all of us are kind of like little different cells. Even the same people in the same group are like little cells onto the own. I think I could probably get two, just for starters, maybe one or two.
That's all you
Let's
need.
start there.
Again, it doesn't have to be a massive group to go to the gym together. You and one or two other people is all you need to start making the changes and start motivating each other and bringing each other along. But you want to make sure you bring on the people and you start with that core group of people who are positive and who aren't going to just say, well, this job is shitty. And it doesn't sound like that's your personality that would attract or like go towards those personalities anyway. Especially now that you've started with coaching. That's a very once you start with coaching, one of the very first things you do is start questioning all the negative mindsets around you. So
True.
that's hit home pretty hard. Like you've cut off your mom or something, haven't you? Like, so you don't call a stepsister anymore somehow.
You're really good.
I've seen it enough times that I can tell. Like once I could see that, like look, like, oh, yep, that's happened. Yeah, I can tell you've cut off somebody who was part of your life for a long time. And it's probably one of the most cathartic decisions you've ever made once you finally did get to make it.
Wow, you're like a psychic now.
It's it's because I've seen it enough times. There's nothing psychic, there's nothing magical about it. But
well, it's true. I mean, if you're always around negative Nancy's or Nellies or Ned's, you're just it's too much noise. You can't figure out. You can't even think almost in a way because the noise is just too much.
It becomes this gaslighting scenario where when you do think, they second guess it and tell you all the reasons why it's wrong. Like I'm hesitant to tell people to ruin Thanksgiving, but sometimes you have to ruin Thanksgiving. No matter,
You do.
you need to have a higher barrier to entry for your inner circle than I've known them since kindergarten.
It's true.
Yeah. And it's tough to do. I know that wasn't an easy decision either.
It was not.
No, but it's what you have to do to protect your own mental health.
Well, and it could be more than that too. You know, when people make those decisions and they make them for real, it's not for an easy reason. And usually it's more than just one reason. You're saving a relationship, you're protecting a child, you're protecting your family, you're keeping yourself sane so you can keep doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but
No.
sometimes you have to do it.
If nothing else, I hope you realize you did the right thing. Like,
I
just
did.
based on this conversation, if nothing else, just hearing what I'm hearing and the relief in your voice, you did the right thing.
I did, and it's been a long, hard road to get here, but
And you still second guess it on occasion.
it's true, and you do when it's people that you've known for so long. But one thing I've learned, and a lot of people I think are scared by this book, but the Bible talks about gossiping, and
Mhm.
everything it says in there is true. The word can destroy, and people do not think about that. Like the words can destroy.
It's growing up as a guy, I know it's so weird for me to understand because guys rip into one another constantly. And oh, we're just ball busting. That's so toxic in terms of what we do to one another. And we don't realize it because it's just, oh, it's just ball busting. It's just fun. No, that's destroying you a little bit inside, whether you realize it or not.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're like in a close circle group of friends, like maybe you and another guy friend, and my husband has his friends where they kind of bust on each other.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like these guys are like brothers. So it's not really toxic. It's how they say, I love you. We're in a bromance, right?
Yeah.
I think when you tell a lie so many times and then people start to believe it, and then they start to believe it's true and then they ignore the truth. That's completely different. Well, I mean, it's probably just a different version of toxic
Yeah.
teasing, but it's a different. It just shows the evidence that words matter. And if you tell a lie often enough, and people can never see the evidence of the truth, like that's hidden, then they'll believe the lie.
Or they have the cognitive bias where they'll flat out ignore the truth when they do see it. Because they just, hey,
It
this is what
is.
I believe. And now they're just built like whatever. That's no longer true no matter what they say. And especially with COVID now and all the things out there now, you see it all the time. They believe what they believe, and they're going to find the pillars to prop that up no matter how asinine it is.
Oh, it's true. I've so just a weird health thing. Vitamin D is very good at boosting your immune system and improves your outcomes of surviving COVID. So I was
Yeah.
posting about that for a while. And then the last post, I actually deleted it and I just took it down. And I was like, you know what? People are going to believe what they want to believe.
Mhm.
I don't feel like getting into any sort of online drama. I'm just making my page more about kittens and shirtless pictures of Jeff Goldblum, then and now type of situation, and other silly, stupid, idiotic things.
Yeah.
Because there's enough crap on social media. At least I can put something funny out there and have a little fun instead.
Yeah. No, and that's one of those things that I've gone back and forth on in terms of how good social media is for everybody. In sales, it's a phenomenal tool when it's used as a tool. Chainsaw is a tool too. A knife is a tool too. Doesn't mean there's not people who don't use it for negative consequences.
Well, and I just remind myself one day I want to do something that's business related online.
Mhm.
It just reminded me again of how important I need to protect certain boundaries, right?
But it's it's tricky too because especially in sales, I know working in real estate that with the level of competition there is, that if you're not a person first, nobody wants to work with you. Nobody wants to work with SalesBot 9000. You need to have some level of personality to it. And your social media should reflect that. But
Well,
without becoming, you know, crazy redneck, like crazy Republican, crazy Democrat, like just shaking your fist at the world. Like you have to show your personality, but that doesn't, don't be an asshole. Let's just call it like that. Don't be an asshole.
it's true.
Hmm.
Or you don't want to scare people away. So,
Well,
I've
sometimes you
done very
do.
political. That's true. That's
I
true.
will
Sometimes you
say
do
a
need to
good
scare people.
the my boss I work with now, in real estate coaching, he has this phrase: good marketing not only attracts the right people, it repels the wrong ones. So sometimes I'm not telling you to start putting political ideas out there, but sometimes something that the majority of people, COVID has become politicized. Why? I don't know, other than they need something to talk about in order to fill a 24-hour news cycle. But how, like wanting people to be happy, healthy, and safe should not be a political point of view.
It's true.
Like that's something
Well,
everybody agrees with.
and I think the media has made it toxic, right? I mean, they thrive on ads. And so CNN and MSNBC and all those networks, their viewership was down. Now
Mhm.
you have millions of people home, captive audience.
Yep.
All this doom and gloom as opposed to let's be cautious, let's be optimistic. What is something positive we can say? People thrive on that. These networks thrive on that negativity because people are going to view the ads. It's all about viewership and staying on the platform as long as possible.
One of your appliances is going to kill you. Tune in at 11. That whole idea, like, but that's the way it was for you, especially like I remember those ads. It's like one of your appliances could be like it could be suffering, like bludgeoning your child with a brick or something. Like it was that crazy, it seemed like. And now it's just at a bigger scale because it's 24-hour news as opposed to just an hour at night the way it used to be.
Well, you have whole news channels and
There
they
shouldn't be.
want
There's
people
not
to,
24 hours of news a day.
I would agree.
There's 2 hours of news
Let's,
and 22 hours of opinion.
how can, how can you report objectively for 24 hours a day? It's
Like as
true.
soon as you see contributor at the bottom, no, mute. I don't care. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and
go for it.
yeah, I was gonna say most people like so my generation and older get most of their news across multiple platforms, but most people that are millennials and younger get most of their news through their friends on social media.
Mhm. And I've seen it in both directions, but I think the big thing to realize is we've kind of gone not quite full circle, but the media is another negative person to cut out of your life. That's that same toxic behavior. That person who wants you to live in fear all the time, the person who constantly wants you to be worried and have that scarcity mindset. The same person that you cut out of your life, you're inviting into your home every time you turn to channel whatever. Read the news. Reading the news is great in my mind. You see opinion you don't read anymore. At least in newspapers, it has to say opinion up at the top.
It's true.
Be well informed, but when it's a contributor, no, they're not giving you real news. They're giving you opinion, and it's not helpful for you. It's prevented people for the last 25, 30 years from forming their own opinions. That's a big problem. Now, it used to be, okay, Walter Cronkite told you the story and you extrapolated from that data. Now they give you the data and the opinion and who to yell at. No, let me decide who's at fault. Let me be the jury in this situation. Don't be the jury for me, sentence, and then just say, okay, well, they're sentenced. Let me decide based on the facts.
You make a good point there. So it's true with these 24 hours news networks, you're going to get the news and then they'll give you their analysis and they'll have their panel. So it's almost like they are doing the thinking for you. You're absolutely right about that.
And they literally do it. I've seen like they literally change the lighting. So like if you're watching on Fox News, they stop, like if you're a Democrat on Fox News, watch the lighting that they use for the Democrat. They always look sunken, like they're in a cave. Same thing with the Republicans on MSNBC. So they literally like make them like this shelled, hollowed out figure when they're on the wrong network. No, just listen to their points. But it's just that subtle undermining of their ideas. It's like, oh yeah, we got 140-watt light bulb.
Well, it's even the lines of questions. I mean,
and the interrupting.
That is true.
You ever notice when you watch, again, a Democrat on Fox or a Republican on MSNBC, CNN, when they try to make a point, you see them interrupt. They don't let them finish their thought, ever. Again, because they don't want to give the jury the other side of the argument. It's another toxic...
I'll be honest, I don't watch network news very often.
As well, you shouldn't. I've seen enough to know that I don't like it. But the same way you have to cut toxic people out of your life, you have to cut toxic news sources out of your life, toxic media sources out of your life. If your Twitter stream has become nothing other than sniping, delete everybody. Start from scratch.
That's a good point.
Find your circle. And people don't take that advice. Like, there's lots of people who've cut toxic people out of their lives, but haven't continued that trend to social media. Just because we played basketball for a season or two growing up doesn't mean you need to be a part of my life and you should have impact. You get to decide. You get to edit the guest list.
It's true. That's true.
Yeah. So back onto the motivation front of everything. Have you done anything in terms of, like, if the thing that really excites you about your job is the problem solving part of it, have you done anything to put yourself in that position more often? Have you tried doing anything along those lines?
I was doing that a little bit more at the last position. This one I've said I've started to age in a little bit, and we've had 2 client meetings with the same client, but we didn't really need to problem solve anything before that.
Okay.
I've just started getting into the problem solving now. Okay. And that's why I'm like, well, maybe that's why the whole sales cycle is getting stale for me. And, I've kind of thought about, like, what is that transition? Mm-hmm. And I ask myself that all the time, is what is the transition for me? What does it look like?
So you're actually coaching somebody now in sales. Is it somebody within your organization or somebody like from a third-party company?
Third-party company. I mean, they're exceptionally small. So I just, meet with them every so often. I just kind of give them best practices that they can use on their own. I mean, he's doing the sales. I'm not doing it for him. I'm just
Yeah, but you're
getting
just
him
coaching
ready to
them, giving them
go.
some tips, and okay.
Hmm.
Is that something that eventually you may want to turn into a full-time position?
Absolutely. I was in between my last position and this position for a good 6 weeks. And I spent a fair amount of time thinking about what that would look like. And, how many clients would I need to go full time?
Okay. And what is your niche in terms of coaching?
Business development and then mindset.
Okay. And yeah, so that's something that if that's your overall goal, start pivoting towards it. It would be my suggestion because it doesn't sound like your current role is exciting enough for you. It's probably going to take
No.
you 3 or 4 years in order for you to build a full-time coaching company
Okay.
and to start
Yeah,
doing
that's
it.
true. It's just,
Yeah.
it's,
So it's not like you're going to be leaving your job today or tomorrow. Like this is not something I'm not going to tell
yeah.
you. You got to put food on the table. Don't turn a bridge extra crispy today.
I
But
agree.
that is if that's the overall goal, 5 hours a week. Something along those lines. Just set that goal of 5 hours a week where you're doing something right. So one of my coaches now, his name is Max. He's writing a book on real estate investment. And when I say he's writing a book, he's contacted Fiverr, he gives them ideas and they write the chapters for him and he just edits them afterwards. Because he's not a creative writer, that's not his strength. Like he creates the outline and then passes it to them and they write the whole chapter. If your overall goal is to start doing coaching full time, a book gives you a lot more credibility because there's a lot of Instagram life coaches out there.
Yeah,
Work,
that's true.
even if you don't have the writing skill for it, start putting together the outline of what you think a sales process should look like for a small business owner and start writing that book. 5 hours a week. Nothing. You could probably do 1,000 words ish in that time. 1,000 words. That means within a year, you'll have 40,000 words. That's the size of a decent book.
40,000 words.
40, yeah. So 40,000, 40 to 50,000 is a good non-business, a non-fiction book size.
I like that idea, actually.
Once you have that, and once you write it in terms of like who your ideal client is, that's going to be your very first step. So as you're coaching this guy, if he's your ideal client, if you want to work with small business, people who don't have, I think of, if you've ever read the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, that's one to read. E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Okay.
In that book, he talks about a woman, a fictional woman named Sarah. Sarah was an excellent baker who decided to open a pie business. She was great at baking, not great at running a business. Because those are, like, figure out who your Sarah is, who your ideal reader is, and then write the tips that you would offer them. And write that book specific to your Sarah. Once you do that and give all the advice that you think that she should be following through with, then self-publish. It costs you next to nothing. And you get to keep all the rights. You don't have to go to Simon and Schuster. You don't need to build a database of tens of thousands of people. You just self-publish, and then that's something that you can leverage for coaching clients, is that book. They don't know that it's not a New York Times bestseller, but that's something that within the year you could have written and ready for publishing.
I like that.
Yeah. But if your goal is to eventually start coaching and do that as a business that you're more passionate about, that's a simple step, 5 hours a week that you could start putting into place.
Yeah, I like that. I was thinking about approaching it from let's start looking at like residual income or passive income. But
Okay.
some of the research I'm looking at, like doing YouTube videos, I
Mhm.
just don't have the time for that.
No.
Like building that audience, doing all these YouTube videos, producing it,
Mhm.
and then, or, I'm a photographer, but I don't even think I'd make $500 a month with my photos up on, what is that website? One of those websites out there. But
Yeah.
I like the idea of a book.
Yeah. And it's something that you can leverage a lot easier, and that creates passive income. Or you can use that
That's
as a front of fun, like a top of funnel thing for coaching too. Hey, click here for a free book. All you pay for is shipping. That's Russell Brunson's model. He gives away his book for free and then sells them coaching. Hey, if you like this book and you want somebody to actually help you implement all the strategies you hear in it, 12 weeks of coaching, $3.99.
Hmm. I like that. I could see myself doing something like that. I would probably kind of go, if I probably could go in two different directions with the mindset and the business development.
Mhm. The
But
tricky thing with
that would
mindset and business development is those are very overpopulated in terms of coaching fields. You need
it's
something a
true.
little more niche, um, in terms of, so you may want to do B2B business sales. Like you may want to narrow it down. The company I work with now is only real estate, and it's still, business development and mindset, but we only work with real estate agents. Real estate agent, because otherwise, small business development, and mindset, you're going to have tens of millions of people in this country, and that's not a marketing budget that you can absorb. You're better off having that diehard niche underneath you where it's okay, only B2B salespeople who work with federal contracts, let's just say, and navigating that. People who work directly with municipalities. Okay, how do you
Mm-hmm.
do business to business to municipality?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm. Yeah,
create that niche for yourself, that blue water, as opposed to red water where the sharks are already eating.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, niche down as much as you can. Um,
And then I
Development and
can scope
mindset, I
back
think, is
out.
too broad. Yeah,
Yeah.
narrow it down to how to sell to municipalities. Hey, guess what? You know what's going to suck is when November comes around and everybody you've been working with for the last 2 years gets voted out. How do you start back from scratch now?
It's kind of like that in the federal market.
I know it is.
4 years.
I know. But
Oh my
those are
goodness.
you're speaking to a problem that your ideal coaching student has that nobody else is. Because they know all the hard work could get erased with one election.
It's true.
And that doesn't mean that can be at any level. If they work with the local board of education for computers, that could happen. Guess what? Now you don't have the votes for
It's
that
true.
budget. But you're
It's
speaking
true.
to that specific problem. Figure out that niche. You need to go deeper than just business development and mindset, though.
Hmm. Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense.
Focus. Your pool should probably be, I would suggest, a million or less. That'll give you enough space to grow as you get out there.
Hmm.
But I mean, a million people in the US, we've got 300 million people. That's 0.3% of the population. That's basically photographers.
It's great.
But that's still a million people. That's not an overwhelming marketing budget. And if you get 1% of that as your clients, 1% of a million is still 10,000 clients. You could do very well with 10,000 clients. If you get 0.1% of that million, you could still do very well. But by trying to aim
It's
for
a numbers game.
it
It's a
is,
numbers game.
but you have to keep it to where you could afford to market to them. Even so, in real estate, Facebook put their 15-mile radius in. You can't market some products that are smaller than a 15-mile radius geographically. So like, so credit services, employment services, housing, things like that. If you're in New York City, that 15-mile radius is probably 15 to 20 million people. You're not going to make a dent with a $3,000 a month budget. You've got to niche down. Try to get definitely a million or less. That's the only way you're really going to be successful. But I would say work on the book would be, or something that you can do long term to build your own credibility. Coach people for free. Offer to coach them completely for free in exchange for reviews. I'm going to help you for 3 months. It'll cost you nothing. At the end, I want a video testimonial. Even if I suck, I want the video testimonial where you say it.
I like that idea. I was actually thinking about that with a friend of mine. I've mentored her before.
Yeah. That's something you can start doing very quickly. Is just now you've got 15 reviews on your website. They don't know they didn't pay you. Nobody knows that. But you have all of these things behind you where now you have that instant credibility the same way the book will do. 5 hours a week to get out. Whatever tactic you want to do, just 5 hours a week. That can be the 5 clients, that could be the book, whatever works best for you. So, but
yeah,
I mean, are there any other like problems, questions that I didn't really get to hit on? We talked about a lot in the last hour or so.
No, this is great. I mean, it's lots of great advice. I appreciate it. You're able to get in deep, and I thought you would, and you did.
Yeah,
So I think we're good.
It's taken a long time to learn like that, but yeah, it's so. But it was awesome having you on. I mean, whatever other problems you have, if you ever want to reach out, send an email, talk again, I'm happy to do that. Once the coaching business takes off and you have more questions about how to do that, I'm still here.
Might take you up on that.
That's what, again, I as long as they're not the same problems in a year, I'm happy to talk about it. If we talk about the same problems that you haven't progressed, then I'm probably going to like beat you like a Catholic nun.
It's okay. Yeah. No, I probably won't have the same problems in a year.
I don't think you will either, but you know, that's always something that you're always going to have problems. You just want to have bigger ones. Bigger problems are a lot more fun.
That's true. Or
like,
better ones.
I know it almost sounds counterintuitive, but bigger problems are a lot more fun.
It depends on what they are, though.
Well, as you like drop down that like Maslow's hierarchy of need, they're usually smaller. Like, okay, I need to eat tonight. Those are tough problems. Like those are the problems that you hate to have. The big
Yeah,
problems
that's
of
true.
how do I appeal to 10,000 people? Those are big problems. Those are a lot more fun.
That is true. That is true.
Okay, I'm in a bad relationship. Yeah, but this it's a small problem. You just get out of that relationship to a certain extent. Like I know it's not that simple, but in many cases, but it's still a easy solution to get out of.
That's true,
Yeah.
depending on your circumstances, I think.
Obviously there's always complications with each one, but it's still the bigger the problems, the more fun they generally are, in my mind.
Hmm.
I like the
Yeah.
challenge. Maybe I'm just wired, well, not wired right at all, but that's a whole nother issue.
Okay.
So, but it
Yeah.
was awesome having you on, and I can't wait to see what you do. And then let me know how the coaching goes. Don't be afraid to reach out whenever anything happens.
I'll keep you posted for sure. I mean, it's something I do want to work on, and
Yeah.
I am working towards.
Yeah. So, start with the small circle at work, and then keep yourself motivated that way, and then motivate yourself on the 5 hours a week, 5 hours a week.
Yeah, I like it. 5 hours a week. It's so simple. It's 2 nights a week. I can do that.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, it was awesome
So,
talking to you. I'll see you soon.
okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right. Bye.